Deck building in Marvel Snap doesn't have to be difficult. A lot of times I see a really intricate combo that if you don't have every single piece of that combo, then the deck just doesn't work. And we only have 12 cards. It doesn't have to be something that is absurdly rare to get. If a particular card in your deck is not doing something of value almost every single game, with a few exceptions of like Super Scroll, then it probably doesn't belong in your deck. If you're like, hey, TLSG, I'm seeing a lot of Galactus and I'm galactose intolerant, I can't beat it. Whenever you're building or picking a deck, make sure that you have a couple of counter pieces in place, whether that be Debris, Green Goblin, Titania, your Polaris, your Arrow. There's so many cards that can counter Galactus, and with it being as common, if that is what you're primarily seeing, as long as you're running a deck that does what it wants to do well outside of those counter cards and you have those built in, then you should be able to, for the most part, beat that deck. If it's Saturday night and you're saying, hey, I'm seeing a lot of Hawk, I can't beat the Hawk. Well, there's a lot of counterplays to that as well. There's been a few cards that have been really consistently good at either countering really heavy, greedy, ongoing plays, or destroying cards that have a lot of power. And so I would say if you're seeing a lot of Hawk primarily, look at ways to build your deck utilizing those counter cards like Shang-Chi and Enchantress. If you're seeing primarily Patriot, because people are now jumping on the Patriot Super Scroll bandwagon, and yes, it is strong. It has been around for a while, but it is incredibly strong right now because it kind of stands out as a consistent performer in the meta. If you're seeing that, then something like Enchantress is going to be your best friend. Find a way to build in Enchantress naturally into your decks, or decks that can easily slot her in, and you're going to be much better off. And so with that, I'd like to introduce today's deck build, and it is a very simple one. It is a control or counter and go wide style deck. You don't need to do anything incredibly fancy to make this deck work. It has a really low curve, so you're always going to be able to be doing something on each turn. And then for your in game, you have either Spider-Man to completely lock them out of a second location. If you had Storm on the board as well, then sometimes you're going to lock them out of two. You can go wide with cards like Captain Marvel and Doctor Doom, and if they're not able to swing either of those other two locations, then you can swing them back in your favor. If the turn that you dropped your Spider-Man, they drop a massive Dino, they drop a Hawk, they drop something of note and of value, you have your Enchantress, you have your Shang-Chi that you can play behind that locked down lane. If you don't get Spider-Man, it can get a little bit more difficult, but that's where your go wide cards come in. This one wants to just be doing something of value every single turn of the game, and with that, it's very simplistic in design, but very effective at the same time. It doesn't matter exactly what cards you draw in what order. You're going to be able to very consistently handle whatever locations or whatever deck your opponent is running. So this deck is one that you're not going to win 80% of your games. You're not going to just blow out the opponent every single time, but you are going to be able to be competitive against whatever kind of deck your opponent is running. Statistic-wise, this deck, over a slew of different filters and collection levels and ranks, has around a 55 to 56% win rate, which is pretty solid when you're thinking about going into your Galactus, your Patriot. All across the spectrum, it does well against whatever is common at that particular point in time. And so as long as you're patient, as you're not going to win every single game, but as long as you're patient with this one, you use the lockdown pieces to your advantage, you should be able to win more games than you're going to lose and climb in the process. And so with the brief deck explanation out of the way, we're going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, next up we have, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't know how to say their name. We have this player. The first location is Krakoa, which is awful. Especially with us having counter heavy cards that we want to drop as like that surprise element. We'll see. We'll see if we're able to hold it down. They are running a Patriot. They've jumped on that Patriot bandwagon, which makes sense. The Sandbar is the new location that is out and about, and so it makes sense to be running Patriot right now, because then you can actually put power into that location a little bit more easily. So speaking of the Sandbar, this is the new location, which after a while it just becomes kind of difficult to play into in general, unless you're running Patriot. Patriot was already incredibly strong right now, and so it's so silly to see a location that just so heavily plays into that archetype. And I know that it was planned like way in advance, but it still feels kind of silly to see it. So they do early drop their Patriot. If we can draw our Enchantress and it doesn't get dropped by Krakoa, we can start swinging the game in our favor, depending on what and where they play. The Sandbar is probably one that we're not going to be able to win. We do have Captain Marvel to be able to shift power over there, but they're just able to put so many resources into the location. So it doesn't drop our Shang-Chi, it doesn't drop our Spider-Man, unfortunately. It does a Storm instead. Not necessarily what we would want to see, and with Patriot being so common, Spider-Man locks aren't always guaranteed either. Oh my gosh, it choked. That's beautiful. Beautiful. We'll take it. So if they do an Ultron, that's 246 here. 246. And it played into the Jessica Jones lane, so we don't get the extra bonus there. So it's 246 here if they play into this location with like an Ultron. If they play Ultron directly here, then it's an extra 4 here. We can beat that, but we lose this lane pretty heavily. I think we're just going to go with the 15 power of Doctor Doom. It doesn't feel great. I think we lose if they stack heavily into the Icebox, but we're going to see. So the Ultron is 7 power. The Scorpion absolutely won us that middle location. Oh my gosh. The Scorpion value, taking Ultron down just that 1 notch, gave us the lead instead of the tie. That doesn't happen all the time, but that is beautiful. We'll absolutely take the 2 cube victory over the 1 point victory. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Sinilin. The first location is the Collapse Mine, so that's the reason we're going to skip the turn. Not because we drew our entire bottom half of our deck and not the top, but to clear the rocks. The second location is Sandbar, so that's kind of unfortunate, but we'll make do. We have a couple of ways to get power there. They drop an Iceman into the far right lane, into the right lane. I guess there's only one right lane, there's no far right. And then I drop an Iceman to the left. We do get a Cosmo. I don't think we want to drop the Cosmo. Most of our stuff operates on reveals. I'm going to. It feels kind of bad to do it. But I also think the 3 power may be critical. So they get, oh, they got Deathlock from the hub. That's not in their original list. They got Deathlock from the hub. I'm going to do a Tempo Enchantress. And then we can do a Spider-Man on 5, Doctor Doom on 6. Maybe. These locations are tough. The Sandbar makes everything else really congested. And so we'll see. We're going to lock in the hub. And then I think Doctor Doom should be our win condition. Oh, wow. They played a Wong. This is a Wong decision, my friend. You're not... I don't know what kind of deck you're running, honestly. The Iceman, the Polaris, and Wong is the only thing we've seen from your build. So it could be, I don't know, I would say a Mr. Negative deck, but Polaris doesn't fit into a Mr. Negative. They could be trying to run like a White Tiger, a Gamora, some strong on reveals. Let's go Doctor Doom, and then we'll see. If they can't play for mid, then we just have it locked down. It does look like they're running some kind of ongoing or some kind of on reveal. I don't know. We'll take the 2 cubes. It doesn't feel like we did anything, but we'll take the 2 cubes and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Will. Do we have the will to win? We'll see. They play away from Kiln, interestingly enough. So that probably means that this is a Patriot deck. They've dropped a Squirrel Girl. If it was a Death Wave, I would assume that they're going to look to do a Carnage, a Deathlock, or something in the Kiln location to get power there early. So I think this is much more in line with a Patriot build, and I think we can get some advantage. There's the Shocker. What a shocker to see the Shocker come down. We're going to go ahead and do Scorpion. Since we don't have to worry about the Killmonger, we're going to do Sunspot and Soak. We have a Spider-Man that we can use on 5 potentially. I don't know. I don't know that that is what we need to do to win. We do get our Enchantress, which is beautiful. One of the best things we could have asked for to top deck. I'm going to go ahead and Soak with the Sunspot. We're going to skip here. I kind of hope they curve out their Patriot early. They may play something like the Thing in Kiln. No, they play Super Scroll. Okay, Super Scroll's not going to give you any value there, friend. That's one of the main reasons why we played it this way and we built our deck this way, is because there's a lot of Super Scroll going around. There's a lot of ongoing going around. Plus, we don't want to make it difficult for our Enchantress to be used freely into whatever lane we want it to be used in. Right now, we're losing these 2 locations. Let's go with the Spider-Man lock in mid. We kind of hope that they play something here and outpower us in this middle location. They do. Wow. So Mystique to copy the Super Scroll, not what you would necessarily want or think you were going to see. Wow. 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 I'm so confused. What? All right, so if we had played Spider-Man into the far right, we could have completely locked it down. Unfortunately, we did not. They can't do Patriot and Mystique now because they played Patriot to copy the Super Skrull, so they leaned really heavily in on that tech piece. And unless it's something that you identify that the opponent... Unless it's something that you identify either the opponent has that key play or the opponent's going to likely drop an ongoing card or something of the sort, it's so silly to do... it's so silly to do Enchantress onto the Super Skrull. We don't have initiative, which is great. If we do this is 3 here, because the Lizard is going to get brought down. No, it's 2 here. So it's 2 here. We do this. This brings us down by 2 here. It brings us to 9. We're going to win each lane by, I think, 1. This brings this lane down to 9, which is fine. 9 is fine. We do this, which is 2, and then 4, so that brings us up to 11. We beat this one by 2. If they drop a Patriot now, if they drop something, a Blue Marvel, we're going to be able to counter it with the Enchantress and walk away unscathed. I would snap, but we're not looking to, wow. We're not looking to scare them off, but we did have a very solid situational advantage. So we will take the 1 cube against another Patriot deck. I'm trying to get games that are not Patriot, but they're coming so few and far between that it's really been very difficult. We're going to go ahead and take the 1 cube and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Dr. Weezing, and they are not running Patriot. I feel it. I feel it in my bones. They're not running Patriot. Let's go ahead and do Iceman early. To get as much disruption off of Iceman, I like to prioritize it as early as I can. So they played a Hood. Could be a junk deck, could be a bounce deck. We could just get Project Pegasus, and then we can curve out all of our cards that if we want to. But I don't want to. That's the thing. I don't want to curve out all of our cards. We're going to do Sunspot to the right. Sunspot to the right, Scorpion, and then we're going to Soak. We could have done Doctor Doom, but I would rather save that as like a last turn surprise. I do wish we would have had our Storm in hand, but it is what it is. They do run Viper, Daredevil, Demon, so they are running a junk deck. They're running one that wants to limit what and how and where we can play. Wow, and then our cards are going to get shuffled into our hand after this turn. What a location. We're going to Soak some more with our Sunspot, just because it's a personal choice, not because we had too high of a curve or anything. Just, it's what we wanted to do. Do we do Storm, or do we just go Jessica Jones here? Storm would allow us to lock it down by turn 6, but do we really need to or want to? Most likely, I feel like we're going to be playing into Miniaturized Lab on 6 for both players. So I don't know that a Storm lockdown is necessarily critical. They could do a Green Goblin and a Titania here. But if they did, they'd have to do it into this lane. So we're going to do a Storm and a Nightcrawler instead. I think the Goblin... Oh, no. Okay, I was wrong. The Titania does come down. And then Debris. So Titania, Debris. So that should be fine. This is going to be pretty congested by the last turn of the game. Like, they could play something to send Titania our way this turn if they wanted to. But do they want to? I don't know. We know that junk decks don't typically run anything that's going to be able to be hit with Enchantress. But I do think we want to play our Jessica Jones into mid. And then on the last turn, we can do Enchantress and Lizard and hope for the best. I also kind of think they send us Titania, but that restricts them to having to play something into a Teal'c on the last turn to recall it back. So I think we're okay. I think we're okay. Well, the snap tells me otherwise. They could have a Professor X for the far right lane, maybe. Then Titania wouldn't bounce where she wants to bounce. Mojo, okay. Mojo over there is wrong. That's not the play you want to go with. Do they have something strange like a Doctor Doom? I think they snapped hastily. The Mojo is just, it's blowing my mind. Like, Mojo in Clutter or junk decks feels like it should be good, but in unison with Titania, or at least in the same lane, is typically not. Now they play something here and they get the extra 6, but they locked in an extra 4 for us on our end. I guess a Doctor Doom would do it, right? All right, we're gonna go Lizard and Enchantress and hope for the best. I'm thinking they have something up their sleeve, but we're gonna find out. Okay, they do retreat. I'm so confused, Dr. Weezing. We will take it. You're not running a Patriot, so I can absolutely respect that. The combination of Hood plus Demon is decent into the Sandbar. You can put a pretty cheap and pretty high power resource there. And if the opponent's not running something without abilities, you can also clog up a lot of their space with the junk deck as well. So we will take the 2 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Mog. The first location is the sewer system. The second one is the Sandbar, which is not great for us in general, but we are going to play our... We're going to play our Lizard, and then our Storm, Jessica Jones, Captain Marvel, Doctor Doom is what I'm predicting. Maybe we do Spider-Man on 5 instead of Captain Marvel. They are running a Patriot deck, but if we can block this location, we can block this one. That takes away their ability to do Ultron, to do those big bursty last turn plays. Oh, wait. Lemuria is just awful for us. That is not what we wanted to see. Unfortunate. We are running against another Patriot deck, if you didn't notice, the Shocker. So imagine my surprise. Imagine my surprise when I realized we were going against another Patriot deck. It always feels bad when a location really drives the meta into like one particular thing, or you get like groupthink where a deck is performing fairly well, and Patriot does perform fairly well, but it is beatable. And then it just kind of gets adopted and adopted and adopted, and then all of a sudden it's everywhere. So they have the Mr. Sinister, which is pretty big here. We do have Spider-Man to lock them out of this right lane. That's why they smiled at our Lizard, because their Super Scroll is going to copy the Lizard's ongoing ability. So go ahead and lock them out of here. They won't be able to do Ultron on the last turn. They won't be able to do Patriot. They won't be able to do Mystique. All they have left is Sandbar for their feelings. So let's do the Spider-Man lock. We're going to get the extra power on the Jessica Jones to the left. If they drop a Patriot, then we can just slap them with an Enchantress. We should have this one easily in the bag. Again, I would snap, but I don't feel like we need to play it aggressively. We're going to go ahead and Spider-Man lock, and that should be the game. We should see a retreat come down here, because now all they can do is compete here. Their Ultron has an ability, so it can't be played. And so we do see the retreat come down. We did have an Enchantress to counter this card, or both of these cards. We had Captain Marvel to move across the board and kind of rove. But all we needed was a Scorpion, was a Nightcrawler, was anything in this location, and we would have won. So let's go ahead and jump over into one more. I know that is 5, but we've seen so much Patriot. So much Patriot. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Cryptokyo. We have Tokyo. The first location is Monster Metropolis. That might be a good location for us to try to drop our Jessica Jones. We could play Iceman into the unknown locations, but I don't want to do that. There's a chance it's like Space Throne or something really negatively impactful. Let's go ahead and go Sunspot and Nightcrawler. We don't know what they're running. We will eventually be able to move Nightcrawler, but Crimson Cosmos is just tough to play into in general. They skip on turn 2 as well, and then the last location turns into the Sandbar, which is not what we wanted to see, but we do have Nightcrawler as a way to move over into that location. So let's go ahead and skip and soak. We have Jessica Jones for the Crimson Cosmos on turn 4. Never mind. We don't have it for turn 4. They have a black and white Moon Knight? That is wild, man. Some wild dedication. Wild dedication. All right, we're gonna go ahead and snap. I assume that this is maybe a Hela deck. And with that, they're not going to be able to play Hela into the Sandbar. So we're going to use Storm here. We're going to Spider-Man lock the Crimson Cosmos lane on turn 5. And then they won't be able to play. So we are going to snap into it. We're feeling fairly confident. Even though we lost our poor Jessica Jones. She never saw it coming. The Gambit. Ooh, the Gambit gets rid of their death. It destroys our something. Our Iceman. Wow. I stuttered for a second. All right, it destroys our Iceman, which is fine. Let's go with the Spider-Man lock into the Crimson Cosmos. Everything about this is still saying probably Hela, or like an Odin re-trigger, trying to like really lean in on some discard and some destruction. But I think we're fine. If this is a MODOK, I'll be very surprised. No, it's an arrow. Okay, and all of these are black and white. My goodness, the dedication to these cards, Tokyo, not crypto, not Bitcoin. Yep, we do force the retreat. We were going to do our Captain Marvel. We were going to move our Nightcrawler over into the sandbar. If they were able to play, our Captain Marvel could act as maybe a buffer to move over there. If not, she could help us win the Crimson Cosmos lane. It was going to be a pretty standard, pretty straightforward. I assume they wanted to resummon their stuff with Hela, and we made that very difficult. So we will take the 2 cubes. It is not against a Patriot deck. Finally, we are going to go ahead and end the video there. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.